Thank you for joining us for another great service at First and LR. I'm honored that you have set aside part of your week to be with us. If you enjoy watching the service, you'll love it even more in person. We would love for you to come and spend a weekend in a service with us and introduce yourself in the guest center. You can learn more about service times and other ways to connect at firstandlr.com. I'm praying that today's message speaks to you, and I'm believing for God to do marvelous things in your life. Thanks for watching.
Is there someone in your life who's hurt you? With their words, with their actions. On Mother's Day, you think of family. Maybe a family member is angry and makes family get-togethers tense and awkward. Maybe they won't come at all. Maybe a friend turned on you and spread lies, or someone said something that hurt your feelings or made you feel less valued. Maybe it's an ex-spouse who's lashing out and making things difficult. Could be someone at work who's targeted you, or another student who makes your life miserable at school. Chances are someone comes to mind. It hurts, it angers you. You may not say it out loud, but deep inside what you want is to get even, to get revenge. You're not the first to feel that way. In the story we look at today, David was consumed by the thought of revenge. We pick it up in 1 Samuel chapter 25 and verse 1. Now Samuel died. All Israel assembled and mourned for him, and they buried him at his home in Ramah. Then David moved down into the desert of Maon. David sought refuge in the wilderness in the southern part of the country. His presence there was a blessing for the shepherds and farmers because they constantly had to fight off raids from the Philistines. But when David moved in with his 600 men, the Philistines stopped their raids because they knew about David, and there's no way they wanted to come against David. A certain man in Maon who had property there at Carmel was very wealthy. He had 1,000 goats. That's a lot of goats, maybe too many. 3,000 sheep, it's a lot of sheep, which he was shearing in Carmel. His name was Nabal, and his wife's name was Abigail. She was an intelligent and beautiful woman, but her husband, a Calebite, was surly and mean in his dealings. Abigail got a great introduction, intelligent, beautiful. On the other hand, Nabal was a jerk. In Hebrew, the word Nabal means intellectually stupid. So in today's words, Nabal would mean moron or dummy or idiot or Captain Ignorant. Now, that probably wasn't his real name, but that's what everyone called him, so much so that his nickname made the Bible. Nabal was a wealthy, arrogant shepherd who benefited from David and his men living in the area because their presence saved his shepherds and his flocks from being attacked or having things stolen. Well, David was in the desert. He heard that Nabal was shearing his sheep. So he sent 10 young men. He said to them, go up to Nabal at Carmel and greet him in my name. Say to him, long life to you, good health to you and your household, good health to all that is yours. Now, I hear it is sheep shearing time. When your shepherds were with us, we did not mistreat them. The whole time they were at Carmel, nothing of theirs are missing. Ask your own servants, they'll tell you. Therefore, be favorable towards my young men, since we've come at a festive time. Please give your servants and your son David whatever you can find for them. David sent his men to ask Nabal if they'd give him some food as a token of gratitude for their protection. David could have put pressure on. He could have said, you need to give us what we deserve for keeping you safe. But instead, David sent a humble, polite request. Hey, we didn't take advantage of you. We didn't steal anything. We were good neighbors. Would you be generous and share with us some of your feast? Now, this wasn't mandatory, but this was customary in the day. That's what you assume would happen. It's kind of like tipping your server at a restaurant. You don't have to do it, but everyone does, and if you don't, you're a Nabal. When David's men arrived, they gave Nabal this message in David's name. Then they waited. Nabal answered David's servants, "Who's David? Who is this son of Jesse?" Many servants are breaking away from their masters these days. Nabal was saying, "David's just another runaway servant who isn't willing to work. He's not the future king. He is a common, lazy, good-for-nothing taker." And that's not all he said. Surly, mean Nabal said, "Why should I take my bread and water and the meat I have slaughtered from my shearers and give it to men coming from who knows where?" He was saying, "I don't even know who you people are." And he's a liar. Nabal knew who David was. Everyone knew about David's victories. And Nabal and David were from the same tribe and the same family. But Nabal treated David's men like dogs. "Get out of my house. Get out of here. I'm not going to give you anything." Nabal completely ignored the fact that David's men had protected his men and flock. Instead of blessing David and his men, Nabal responded with anger and insults. He saw absolutely no reason to help them. All he could think is what would cost him. He was foolish and selfish, and he earned his name. Now, there are definitely still Nabals in the world. Overbearing, hard-hearted, arrogant, angry, rude, selfish jerks. You know them. Don't point them out. That wouldn't be good. You work with them. You might go to school with them. You meet them on the road. Occasionally, you might even meet one in church. David's men turned around, went back. When they arrived, they reported every word. I'll bet they did. And probably with some emotion. David didn't take it very well, which we kind of understand, because how would you respond if your kindness was repaid with insults? David said to his men, "Really? All right, put on your swords." So they put on their swords. David put on his. About 400 men went with David, while 200 stayed with the supplies. Nabal messed with the wrong guy. David was so mad that he was offended, he was angry, he was out of control. Look what he said: "May God deal with David, be it ever so severely, if by morning I leave alive one male of all who belongs to him." David was so mad, he decided to kill Nabal and his servants, destroy everything they had. He said, "Now I'll spare the women and children, but everyone else is going to die. I am going to teach them a lesson. I'm going to make an example out of them. I am David, and I will not be treated that way. I am David, and I deserve better. I am David, and I deserve respect. I am David, and I reserve honor. I am David, and no one gets to talk to me like that." David was mad. He was going to get even. You can identify with David because you think the same way when Nabal's insult hurt and offend. They need to be taught a lesson, right? And since you're the one who is wronged, you decide that you're the one who needs to teach the lesson. You like the idea of paying them back and getting revenge. Since you didn't get what you deserve, now you're going to make sure they get what they deserve. And maybe you've even said it this way. It's a really popular saying in the South: "I don't get mad. Apparently you have said it that way. "I don't get mad, I get even." There is something intoxicating about revenge. It's seductive and almost irresistible. It is a natural reaction to want to inflict pain on people who cause pain. Have you ever had poison ivy? It's horrible, isn't it? And the worst thing you can do is scratch it, because if you scratch it, what happens? It spreads. but it feels so good to scratch it. So you scratch, even though you know that it will spread and do more damage. Thinking about revenge is like that. Although you know the damage it can do to your heart, you do it anyway. It feels good. It's fun to think about getting even, but the desire for revenge destroys you spiritually. Jesus taught against revenge. He said things like, do not repay evil for evil. Do not take revenge. Jesus said, do not send angry emails. Do not post a rant on Facebook. Jesus didn't say that, but if he were here today, I think he would say that, so I'm going to say it for him, and you just receive it. Jesus even said, bless those who persecute you. And you say, come on, Rod, give me a break. Bless them. Don't take revenge. That all sounds good, but you don't know what they did. You don't know what they said. You don't know how bad they hurt me. Well, before you tune me out, I want you to listen to the rest of the story. One of the servants told Nabal's wife, Abigail, hey, there's something you need to be aware of here. David sent messengers from the desert to give our master his greetings, and he hurled insults at them. Yet these men, they were very good to us. They did not mistreat us. The whole time we were out in the fields near them, nothing was missing. Night and day, they were like a wall around us. All the time we were herding our sheep near them. Now think it over and see what you can do, because disaster is hanging over our master and his whole household. He is such a wicked man that no one can talk to him. Even the servants knew. Abigail lost no time. She took 200 loaves of bread, it's a lot of bread, 2 skins of wine, 5 dressed sheep, 5 seahs of roasted grain, 100 cakes of raisins, 200 cakes of pressed figs, and loaded them on donkeys. Then she told her servants, go ahead, I'll follow you. But she did not tell her husband Nabal, because she knew Nabal was a jerk. As she came riding her donkey into a mountain ravine, there was David and his men descending toward her as she met them. David had just said, it's been useless, all my watching over this fellow's property in the desert so that nothing of his was missing. He has paid me back evil for good. So I'm going to pay him back with more evil. May God deal with me ever so severely if by morning I leave alive 1 male of all who belong to him. Now, last week, we read about David when he was in a position to kill Saul and didn't. Remember the story? Saul was chasing David around the country, trying to kill him. David was hiding in a cave, and Saul went to the bathroom in the very cave where David was hiding. And David got so close to Saul that he cut off his piece of his robe, but he refused to kill him. David showed mercy to a man who was trying to hunt and kill him, and now a short time later, David took 400 men to destroy the entire family of a guy who wouldn't give him food. David was on a rampage. Gone was the heart of mercy. Gone was the heart of compassion, and in its place was a heart of revenge and punishment. David's mindset was, they deserve it, and they're going to get it. Revenge blinds you to reality. When you're angry, you can't think clearly. All you can think about is the wrong that was done to you. David's anger and rage affected his decision-making. And many of you are the same way. When you're insulted or wronged, your temper flares, your blood pressure rises, your face gets red, and you become blind to the reality of the situation. You are convinced that your feelings are justified and your words are okay. You say and do things that are foolish and sinful. Like David, you are absolutely consumed with the thought of getting even. Often to justify your sin and anger, you surround yourself with other people who are just as mad. You create a community of outrage, and you fill your home with hate, you place yourself in a setting that hardens your heart, then you limit the voices in your life to only ones who will agree with and support your anger. By surrounding yourself with people who perpetuate your foolishness, you even become offended when rational people try to get you to slow down or change. Some of you are there right now. The people around you tell you got a right to be angry. You got a right to get revenge. You need to make sure everyone knows your side of the story. They keep you stirred up at your spouse, your ex, your pastor, your parents. You picked the wrong friends. David's immediate reaction was to take matters into his own hands. He didn't consider God's involvement. Instead, he put together a plan to hurt Nabal and everyone connected to him. He's going to kill them all. He's going to wipe them out because they didn't give him food. When Abigail saw David, they're both coming down into a ravine from opposite sides of the ravine. She quickly got off her donkey. She bowed down before David with her face to the ground. She fell at his feet, and she said, "My Lord, let the blame be on me alone. Please let your servant speak to you. Hear what your servant has to say. Listen to me. May my Lord pay no attention to that wicked man Nabal. He is just like his name. His name is Fool, and folly goes with him." She knew her husband. "But as for me, your servant, I didn't see the men my master sent. Now, since the Lord has kept you, my master, from bloodshed and from avenging yourself with your own hands, as surely as the Lord lives and you live, may your enemies and all who intend to harm my master be like Nabal. Let this gift, which your servant has brought to my master, be given to the men who follow you. Please forgive your servant's offense." Abigail humbly apologized for her husband's foolishness. Any wives identify with that? Don't raise your hands. Abigail made her speech. Then she asked David to forgive her husband. "Please forgive your servant's offense. For the Lord will certainly make a lasting dynasty for my master." She's talking to David. "Because you fight the Lord's battles. Let no wrongdoing be found in you as long as you live. When the Lord has done for my master every good thing he promised concerning him, when he's appointed him leader over Israel, my master, you will not have on your conscience the staggering burden of needless bloodshed or of having avenged himself." That made David stop and think. Abigail said, "If you kill Nabal and all the men, for the rest of your life as leader, it'll be on your conscience. And you will always remember when you killed a fool over some food." Abigail reminded David that revenge is a burden. When you make someone else hurt because they hurt you, that doesn't lessen your pain. That doesn't make you feel better. Instead, it is a burden you will carry for the rest of your life. You'll always remember how you responded to evil with evil. You will never forget how you let that person's wrong cause you to do wrong and how you lowered yourself to their level. Abigail finished, "And when the Lord has brought my master success, remember your servant." Abigail was wise. She reminded David that dealing with Nabal was God's job, not David's. No doubt she had heard about David's speech to Goliath. Do you remember that speech? David walked out to the giant and he said, big intimidating giant, armies on both sides. David said to Goliath, "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied." And then David went into biblical trash talk. "This day the Lord will hand you over to me. I will strike you down and cut off your head. Today I will give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds of the air and the beasts of the earth, and the whole world will know there is a God in Israel." And then David made an announcement. "All those who are gathered here will know that I am a great and mighty warrior. Everyone here will know that I deserve to be king. They'll all know that I'm bigger and stronger and better than any giant. They'll all know that I'm a great shot with a slingshot. It's not what David said. Listen to what David said. The same David who's about to kill a guy for food said, everyone will know it is not by sword or spear that the Lord saves, for the battle is the Lord's. And he will give all of you into our hands. On that day, facing a huge, intimidating enemy, David said, it's not my fight. The battle belongs to the Lord. It is God who takes care of my enemies. But now, facing a fool, David was ready to take care of it himself instead of trusting God to handle it. Revenge puts you in the place of God. God rights wrongs. God takes care of evil. That is God's job and not yours. Say, Pastor Rob, I'm not sure about that. Well, let me show you a couple verses. First, in the book of Nahum, chapter 1, the Lord is a jealous God, filled with vengeance and wrath. He takes revenge on all who oppose him and furiously destroys his enemies. You say, well, that's Old Testament. Well, let's go to the New Testament, Romans chapter 12. Dear friends, never avenge yourself. Leave that to God, for it is written, I will take vengeance, I will repay those who deserve it, says the Lord. When you take matters into your own hands and you seek revenge on the one who did you wrong, you are saying to God, I don't trust you to take care of me. I need to take care of me. I need to fix it, God, because you can't. And in response, God removes his hand and says, okay, if you'd rather handle it, I'll let you. You choose. Do you want them to suffer your wrath? Or do you want them to suffer my wrath? Abigail's apology was heartfelt and powerful, and it hit the mark. David listened carefully. When he stopped to consider his actions and his consequences, his heart changed. When you're bent on revenge and you're just full bore, you're going after him, and you're 1 in the morning and you're posting on Facebook and you're letting the whole world know everything about it. The last thing you want to do is listen to the voice of reason or even the voice of God. You're just thinking about one thing, getting even. I'm going to make sure everyone knows I'm going to hurt him the way he hurt me. Before you go there, before you start yelling, before you send that angry text, before you post that damaging Facebook post, before you start rumors, get in a fist fight, or hire a lawyer, slow down, check your motives, and you remember your God. That's what David did. David said to Abigail, now remember, a few minutes ago, David was saying, I'm going to kill them all. I'm going to wipe them from the face of the earth. May God deal with me if one of them's breathing. Now David said to Abigail, praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel, who sent you today to meet me. May you be blessed for your good judgment and for keeping me from bloodshed and from avenging myself with my own hands. Otherwise, as surely as the Lord God of Israel lives, who's kept me from harming you, if you'd not come to meet me, not one male belonging to Nabal would have been alive by daybreak. David said, that was so close. I almost made a horrible mistake. Thank you for keeping me from committing murder over a meal. Thank you for stopping me from taking over instead of trusting God. Abigail, God used you today. Then David accepted from her hand what she'd brought him, all the food, and said, go home in peace. I've heard your words and granted your request. David and his men turned around and went home. It took some courage. David was willing to admit he was wrong and stop before he acted on his desire for revenge. Verse 36, when Abigail went to Nabal, he was in the house holding a banquet like that of a king. He was in high spirits and very drunk. So she told him nothing till daybreak. Then in the morning, when Nabal was sober, his wife told him all these things. His heart failed him and he became like a stone. And about 10 days later, the Lord struck Nabal and he died. What a cool ending. Right? Nabal apparently had a heart attack, went into a coma, never recovered consciousness, and then he died. Oh, God did handle it. And when David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, "Praise be to the Lord, who's upheld my cause against Nabal for treating me with contempt. He's kept me, his servant, from doing wrong, and he's brought Nabal's wrongdoing down on his own head." When David took his hands off Nabal, God handled it. And David had a clean conscience and a pure heart. Now, because I know you, I'm ahead of you. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Pastor Rod, this is the greatest Bible story ever. I love this, and I think what I hear you saying is, God's going to kill my enemies. So when's that going to start? Because Tuesday's a perfect day for it. I'll be standing by, I'm ready for the call, and I will praise be to God. It's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is, you can trust God to handle it. God makes things right. God will make sure sins are punished. You can leave it in his hands. Many of you immediately saw the face of a person who hurt you when I mentioned it a few minutes ago. Maybe you've spent days or weeks or even months wasting energy thinking and wishing that you could repay that person for the evil they did to you. God is just, and he will handle it in his time. He doesn't need your help. Even when life is unfair, God's in control. To overcome the desire for revenge, recognize God is involved. And again, I know what you're thinking. Come on, Rod. You mean even when someone does me wrong, God's involved? It's exactly what I'm saying. God does not relinquish his authority because of fools. God's in control. To overcome your desire for revenge, give up the right to strike back. You somehow believe it's your right to strike back if you've been unfairly wounded. If they say something about you, you say something about them. If they post something about you, you post something about them. If they hurt you, you hurt them because they have it coming. But the Bible says in Romans chapter 12, bless those who curse you. Bless and do not curse. Leviticus 19, do not seek revenge or bear a grudge against one of your people. Love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord. Now, is it easy to think about love and blessings instead of hate and revenge? Is that just like automatic when you accept Jesus? No, it's a challenge. But it's right. It's time to lay down that burden. It's time to give that person to God and trust that God will take care of it.